Hi, everybody. Welcome to our first ever SmartTake series where we're digging into HubSpot CMS, the new CMS hub. We've got an awesome panel of SmartBugs and HubSpotters here to answer your questions, and we've got some that we've already prepared here. I see people are flowing in, so I'm just gonna give everyone a minute. There is a question panel in the GoToWebinar control panel. There's also a chat. Please, as your questions are coming up, enter those into that question panel and we'll be able to respond to them either live on the panel or we'll follow up with you virtually, digitally afterwards if we run out of time. But we're excited for an action-packed hour digging into all things CMS. Let's dive right in, you guys. So like I said, thanks so much for joining us. We put this panel together, or here at SmartBug, I'm Jen, I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing, because what I observed is that HubSpot continues to have so many really cool features, new products, betas, just all kinds of different things that the product team is working on. And being a HubSpot Elite partner, we get access to, early on, what's coming. We get to start playing with things, get our hands dirty, test it on ourselves, and then introduce our clients to it. And so we actually get to go from this is the feature on paper that HubSpot announces in their knowledge base, and then we actually go into practical application. And it's pretty cool, and there's a lot of learning that we get, and we thought we want to pay it forward and share it with all of you. So I'm going to let the panel, we'll go around with the panel, introduce themselves, starting with you, Molly.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Molly. I am, like I said, in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm just south of the city, close to the Ballantyne area. So anyone in the neighborhood, when we're allowed to finally go back outside, hit me up. I'm always down for a cup of coffee or a beer somewhere. I'm a marketing strategist at SmartBug. So I am on our client services team. I'm working with some of our clients doing kind of that high level strategy and having those conversations with them about what are your goals? What can we do from a marketing, sales enablement, HubSpot automation perspective to make sure that you're reaching those goals, exceeding those goals, but also pivoting with what new tools become available, what your market is dictating that they need from you, and making sure that we're really aligned there. So I work with our team of developers, writers, creatives, other teams on our SmartBug side here, and make sure that we're using all the tools that our clients have at their disposal, to the best of their ability. So using HubSpot and staying up to date is critical to success for a lot of our clients, and I love nothing more than getting to talk about it.
Awesome. I'm super glad you're here. Justin, why don't we pass it over to you?
Sure. Nice to meet you all. Justin Gracie, Senior Marketing Manager at HubSpot. And as I just mentioned, I'm located here in Somerville, Massachusetts, just north of Boston, close to Cambridge, headquarters for HubSpot. And the reason why I'm here is because I've been working closely with Luke on the product side here at HubSpot on bringing CMS Hub to market to you, our customers. And particularly for this webinar, I love working with SmartBug, one of my favorite partners to collaborate with. The work they do is amazing. So really psyched to be here.
Fantastic. We love partnering with you as well. And Mark.
Sure. So my name is Mark Ryba. I'm a senior developer here with SmartBug Media, based in Maryland, kind of in the DC area. And I've been a developer on the HubSpot platform for 6 years now. So I remember the very first V1, single template version of it from back in the day, and really got into it with the release of the Cause a few years ago. And then now I've been really involved in the HubSpot developer community in general. So especially seeing this new CMS Hub launch, there's just a ton of new features on the development side that have me really excited personally, and what they mean that we're going to be able to build for our client sites on the HubSpot platform, but also the improvements that it brings to the marketer experience. So we'll jump into that in a bit. But yeah, this announcement is really exciting, and really pumped to be here to talk about it with everyone.
Awesome. And Mark, you also win the prize for having the best webcam, because I feel like we're right there with you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, and Luke.
How's it going, everyone? Thanks for attending today. My name is Luke Summerfield, and I've had quite a tour of duty around the HubSpot world for about the last 9 years. The first 3.5 being at actually a partner agency implementing HubSpot with clients. And so for any of you coming from an agency, I understand that world and understand implementing the hands-on stuff. And then that agency got acquired and I jumped to my adventure at HubSpot and worked in the agency partner program for a while, worked on the marketing team for a while, worked in the academy for a while. And the last about 3 years I've been on the product team, 1.5 years working exclusively with our developers. So I got the pleasure to work with Mark a ton over that. He was very helpful in the community and does great work. And the last year or so I've been specifically focusing on the product that we just launched last Tuesday, the CMS Hub. And so anything from development side of things to, the product itself to agency life, I'm happy to answer any questions on. I appreciate being here.
Fantastic. Really glad to have you. And my responsibilities at SmartBug, I oversee all of SmartBug's own marketing and sales efforts. So my team is responsible for, I've got all of our sales reps, our marketing team. I'm responsible for demand generation, our own website, we use all of HubSpot's tools. So my team are like all inside HubSpot all the time. And then when a new client comes on board, then they move over to our client services team. So when I was putting together the questions for today's panel, I was thinking about the types of things that I hear most often when people are coming and saying, hey, we're using HubSpot CMS, or we're thinking about using the CMS, and these are some of the challenges we have, or like this is the problem we're hoping that it's going to help us solve. And so that was what I framed. So we've prepared a few questions, but we will have time at the end to answer any other questions that you have. So, please, as you have them, you can go ahead and continue putting them in that control panel. Or if you want to take it offline and follow up with us later, when we send out the recording, there'll be a mechanism for you to ask questions, and we can even hop on, individual calls to help support you all. So with that, let's go ahead and dig right in to the first question. Last week, HubSpot really up-leveled its CMS and created this complete CMS hub with 2 different tiers that are based on marketers' needs. So there's now a professional tier and an enterprise tier. So the first question is for people who are existing HubSpot CMS users, what are the most substantial improvements that we think marketers should be aware of, being that they're already a user of the CMS? Maybe we can start, maybe Mark, we can start with you.
Yeah, sure. Happy to talk with that. So yeah, the CMS Hub, obviously it's an incredible tool, incredible launch that they've had. As I say, the CMS has been around for a while, right? And it's always been this a flexible tool and really driven by marketing results, so that we're getting the right analytics from the users using these sites. And also we are kind of riding the line between content being simple to edit, but also being rigid and kind of developer friendly in that we can make it as responsive as needed, right? But there has been this point of friction between taking a template and making a small modification or something like that sometimes requires reaching out to a developer like me. Even when it's a marketer, at the end of the day, you're just trying to get a web page updated or a web page posted. You know what I mean? So the 2 big focuses that I look at when I'm looking at the CMS Hub and the new features that it's rolled out is really an improved marketer experience and an improved developer experience. So obviously we're mainly talking about marketers here. So what these new features mean for you, things like drag and drop page editing and being able to have the new global content editor and theme settings, means that ultimately as a marketer, you can make more of these decisions yourself and have control over these settings without having to reach out to a technical contact like me. You can just get your assets published out there on your schedule when you need to flexibly. On the developer side, I'll just touch on really quick. We're kind of changing the way that we build sites for HubSpot. So moving from an individual template with a visual layout kind of being the best practice to instead moving towards encoded templates and approaching our development more as a total theme rather than individual templates and template variants. So ultimately, it means that us as developers can use a lot more of the tools that are standard in the industry that in the past has been a challenge to use with HubSpot sometimes. But really, ultimately, at the end of the day, it means that we can focus on building overall themes, individual, really cool modules. Ultimately, I think of it kind of as marketers now are the NASCAR drivers, and we are their pit crew. We're giving them the tools that they need to go faster.
I like that analogy.
I
do
know
too.
I'm not a NASCAR junkie, but I like that one.
I'm going to use that for sure going forward.
Molly, I just like glancing through like the folks who are on the line with us right now. We got a lot of marketers here, so maybe you can like dig in a little bit more to some of the things that you're excited about from that marketer perspective.
Absolutely, and I cannot agree more with everything that Mark said. I mean, the drag and drop features, the global modules, the themes, all of those really cool features are definitely going to be a benefit for us on both sides. I think that what I'm seeing with the work that I do on a day-to-day basis and my counterparts at our clients, like in-house marketers, is that historically we've relied on developers to do some of those simple things. All the developers are like, oh, but what marketers see as a simple change that may to us seem like, oh, well, I just want a button here, like it shouldn't be that hard. But depending on the customizations and all of the different pieces that we also require, it may not be just a click of a button. So giving some of that power to marketers and saying it doesn't have to all be this like rigmarole of sending in requests to the dev team and then having all those conversations. Like there are some things that the dev team can do to set up marketers in advance is really exciting. There's also kind of that, being able to take responsibility for it as well, because sometimes as marketers, we're asked, why isn't this project on time? Why isn't this moving the way we wanted it to? Why aren't we seeing the results we expect? And some of it we can't answer to because we don't have that knowledge that developers have. We are constantly asking developers like, well, why doesn't this work that way? Or why couldn't it work that way? Or why are my analytics coming in this way? And being able to have some of that power and control and see how the page was actually built and have a hand in it, I think is going to not only improve our turnaround times and our like kind of quality of work that marketers are able to do, but I think it's also going to improve our relationship with our developers. I personally love working with our development team. I love working with Mark. We've done some really fun projects together. If you check out the SmartBug site, Mark has done some really cool things, all using HubSpot. But I mean, I want our relationship to be collaborative. I want it to be strategic problem solving and not just this constant like, hey, I need this. Hey, I need this. And this tool takes that friction out. And I'm really excited about that. I think the one thing that we have to keep in mind is that with power comes great responsibility, right, marketers? Even though we have all these tools at our fingertips and Dev is setting us up for success with this library of modules and themes that we can access, just because we can change it doesn't mean we should. So I think it's a time for us to take a step back and really assess that relationship with Dev, with our creative teams, with our UX teams, if we have all of those. I know that some people are saying, who is this girl thinks she's talking to with UX teams and full creative teams? But sometimes it makes sense to step back and say, okay, who should be doing what? How do we make sure we keep our brand standards and UX and all of our goals in mind, in that we're creating standardization, even though everyone technically on the team has power to make changes now. But overall, I'm so excited. I think it's going to open doors. It's things that my clients have been asking for. It's things that I have to tell them it's not ready yet. It's not something we can do yet, but it's here.
If we take a second and speaking of stepping back, I love that y'all are so excited about the individual features of drag and drop editing for marketers, and the theme flexibility, changing colors and styles, and then the developer experience for editing now, local development and code. But if we zoom back, I want to just touch on kind of the 3 areas that CMS Hub Professional and Enterprise help companies with. And the first one that we've been talking about in this area is the fact that it eliminates barriers for marketers to get their work done. And it enables the team to get their work done. And then the thing that does is it frees the developers' time up to focus on coding more complex, more impactful, more valuable experiences on the website, right? So it's a win-win. Developers not, as we mentioned, having to jump in and do little tweaks. The marketing team can just get their work done and edit without effort. So that's one of the stories of the CMS Hub. The other 2 that I'll mention really quickly that we designed around was the challenges that we saw, which we kind of have this traditional CMS versus modern CMS world. And when we looked at the traditional CMS world, one, we saw that developers were gatekeepers, like we've been talking about. The second thing we saw is that traditional CMSs force you to spend an inordinate amount of time managing the system, updating plugins, making sure that the servers are online and performing well. Like, you had to invest a lot of time and energy into your system, which pulls your time and energy away from focusing on your customers. So at HubSpot, when we relaunched this product, we've been focusing on how do we, as a SaaS CMS, take care of all the maintenance and management without any of the migraines. Like, let us just take care of security. Let HubSpot take care of maintenance. Let HubSpot take care of all the updates so that you can focus on your customers, not your systems. Right? So there's a whole bunch of features that we've bundled into that area as well, but that's the second area. And the third area for the CMS Hub, and maybe I'll quickly touch on enterprise, and I don't want to make this too long-winded of an answer, but the third thing is that it's an all-in-one platform to grow traffic and generate leads. At the end of the day, the website is an asset for your business to help with business growth. And so in order to do that, you can't just have a disconnected website that's a static brochure living over here. It needs to be connected with all of your other systems. And so right out of the box, the CMS comes with paired directly with our CRM and kind of your contact data, comes with our conversational platform. And then it also comes, if you have one of our marketing, sales, or service hubs, it comes with all of that baked in. So when you look at the feature set, it's really all the features that you need to be successful in generating traffic and growing leads, again, without having to like layer in all of these like plugins, and then you get into this like clunky system issues. So that's the professional story, but some companies that are scaling, they need even more than just that. And so we built a beefier version, CMS Hub Enterprise, which is everything that's in professional, but also gives organizations opportunities to build powerful web app experiences and have governance over a growing team. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about big teams, multi-language, how to manage that, but the part that's interesting for me that marketers should be aware of is that the lines of what a website is and what software are blurring, and the experience that your customers expect on the website is becoming greater and greater. And so in order to do things like personalized experiences, in order to do things like really impactful types of experience on your website, you need to basically be able to build web applications on your site. That's what the CMS Hub Enterprise do. You can basically build, the developer can code up all these really amazing, complex, very valuable web applications, but they're still easy for the marketers to use because they plug into all of our tools already in there. The lists tool, the workflows tool, the HubDB, if any of you marketers have used any of that stuff, that's basically how you can manage all your web apps. And then the governance and control thing, allowing your team to be happy, that everything's safe, everything's scalable, and at the same time having the control to show what content to the right people in your team. So we do that through content partitioning, we do that through SSO, we do that through having team roles and things like that. And so just being able to, we have an activity log now where you can see all the changes the team is making and kind of spot any issues before they actually happen. So that governance and control as you're scaling as a company is big too. So those are the things, those are the high level things that I'm most excited about. And then of course there's a ton of features and functionality that live underneath that to make that a reality.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you're extremely passionate about the CMS, which makes sense, and I love it. And I appreciate like some of the things that you mentioned about like having the website actually be this marketing engine for you. Nothing makes me more sad than when I'm talking with like a prospective client and I'm going through their website and I see a form and I say, oh, what happens when I submit this form? Like when I register for this newsletter, right? What happens? And they look at me and say, I have no idea. Or it goes nowhere. I don't know, right? So let's make sure that everyone's making use of this this digital storefront that we all have as businesses. Let's switch to the second question, and attribution in all shapes and sizes. It's a topic of conversation for me. Like every marketing, and I haven't been to a marketing conference in a little bit, but every marketing conference I've been to, the last one was in February, every call I have with marketers, people want to know, what do they need to know about attribution? What are the tools that are out there? They've got CEOs coming into their offices asking them about attribution. I know there's CMS, HubSpot CMS has a contact attribution report builder. I'd love, Luke, if you could just start at a high level, tell us like, how is this going to help marketers?
Well, we saw, if you look at, again, looking at what your job as a marketer is to help the business grow, right? And at the end of the day, you need to be able to show the effort that you're putting into your content, the effort you're putting into your website is paying off and helping the business grow. That's what your boss is looking for. That's what the CEO is looking for. And in traditional CMSs, being a disconnected system that lives outside of your CRM and lives outside of all your other marketing activities, it becomes very difficult and very fuzzy to tie back the return on investment of your website and your content efforts. And so when you look at a modern CMS, what you're looking for is a system that syncs all of that information together and puts it at your fingertips to make it very easy to show that return on the investment. So when we built CMS Hub, we looked for ways, how do we do that? Now, we have different types of attribution reporting depending on the length or the depth and complexity of your systems. What we have right out of the box in CMS Hub is specifically around how your content in your website is generating contacts and leads for the business. So you'll be able to track back all the interactions, all the activities that you've done that directly relate to a contact being created in the system. If you are also using for our marketing tools in Marketing Hub Enterprise, you can take that even further and you can start seeing it starts integrating with all the marketing tools. So things like the social interactions that they've had and things like the email campaigns that you've run, and then it ties it all the way back in the multi-touch attribution reporting we have in Marketing Hub Enterprise to an actual dollar amount. Again, because this is an all-in-one system, you have your CMS directly connected with your marketing tools, directly connected to your CRM. It's very, very easy without being a data scientist and having to spend hours setting this system up. Right out of the box, you'll be able to tie it back to like this is how we generated the contact. And then if you, again, have Marketing Hub Enterprise, touch attribution and revenue reporting, and so you can touch it back to, here's exactly what these pieces of content generated for revenue for the business.
I'm so excited about this. And Molly, what, from your perspective, working with a number of clients and also being an in-house marketer on your own, like how are you seeing that this is going to help those marketers as part of their overall strategy?
It's a really good question, Jen. Honestly, what's weighing on me today as that we're starting a new quarter is I feel like every quarter marketers are asked to kind of justify themselves. What is your ROI? Why should we keep investing in this? Why should we keep investing in these tools? And when you have a tool like attribution reporting that is built in with, like Luke said, with all of the other tools you're already using, it takes the guesswork out of what's working, what's not, what should we focus our budget on this quarter, next year, and it gives you the data that otherwise you may be assuming or making anecdotal recommendations on. It takes any of that guesswork out, and to me that's invaluable. I mean, as much as I love all the like power that I have now with HubSpot and the CMS, I think knowing how those changes are affecting our lead generation or our traffic, whatever goals we have set, being able to measure those changes and measure my efforts, my clients' efforts, hands down is the big winner of the day.
Yeah, and I would totally. I was
Justin.
just going to agree with you, Molly, there quickly. Just like as a marketer, there's times back years ago where reporting to the C-level or the executive level where, you know, you show a dashboard and everything's up and to the right, and that's all you could really report on. And this really empowers you to have a seat at the table of making the forecasting decisions for the company as a whole, and actually driving revenue with the marketing side of it.
And the beautiful thing of all of this, you don't, it's not this crazy system that you got to set up all these syncs and all this move data all around, and you need a data scientist to figure this out, and you need a hardcore developer to sync all these like disjointed systems. It's just right there at your fingertips as a marketer. Now, of course, can you layer in developer to do more complex stuff? Yeah, of course. But I think that's the beauty, is like sometimes going back to my agency days, I would see something, I'm like, yeah, conceptually, I know this is important. I know how to do this. And then when you get into the weeds of actually setting it up, you're like, oh man, what did I get myself into? Super simple, right out of the box, and you'll be able to set it all up.
Well, on that note, let's jump into the more complex. We're seeing, you know, HubSpot, gosh, when I first bought HubSpot as a marketer, as an in-house marketer back in like 2012, 2013, it was not the same beast. It is not the beast that it is today, right? Like HubSpot's grown up a ton, and seeing big organizations, large global organizations that are serving audiences in multiple languages that are using HubSpot. So I want to dive into like, what are some of those day-to-day challenges that those marketers of those global organizations face? How is HubSpot CMS, how is the CMS Hub going to help them? Maybe we can start with you, Justin.
Yeah, sure. And Luke and Molly, feel free to jump in, but I'll give my perspective of my experience as a marketer with multiple languages. Definitely have struggled in the past with it, but you know, as a marketer, managing global clients or working at a global company, you know, you're faced with quite the challenge. And first of all, marketers are managing a ton on a day-to-day basis as it is, never mind doubling, quadrupling that in terms of the languages you're also managing now. And that, you know, goes exponentially higher when you're a smaller team and you're the one that's solely responsible for it. And when you do expand internationally, you're faced with a lot of anxiety around the question of like, how the hell are we going to manage all of this? And to me, like the thing that really stands out is finding a CMS that makes it easy to organize and manage all of that in one place. And you know, usually you want to start with a CMS that was developed with managing multiple languages from the get-go in mind. And that also pulls in, you know, out-of-the-box features that support multi-language, so you can avoid having to lean on plugins and other tools that are going to maybe increase the risk of security issues. But with CMS Hub, some of the things that stood out to me in terms of managing this content for multiple languages easier is global editing of content, grouping pages together. So you have your master language that you're working off of. For me, it would be English, and then having a group of pages for each of the languages built off of that master page. And then going further into optimizing that content across of all your languages with adaptive testing and SEO recommendations for each of your languages. So for me, the big thing and big takeaway from CMS Hub is having the ability to easily organize yourself, and you're not trying to track down disparate pages and URL slugs and everything like that. It's all built in one place easy to toggle to. But then, of course, with CMS Hub, you can have your developer build that toggle on the customer view when they land on your website to select which language they prefer, improving the user experience.
Actually, maybe Mark, I don't know if you want to jump in here and share, just from the dev perspective, how the CMS is supporting these marketers or the developers that are working on these projects.
Sure. So we actually, at the last developer day, we had a session specifically on multi-language sites and how we can better service multi-language audiences. And I would definitely refer people back to that talk. It was really awesome. A guy named Gonzalo gave it. So we definitely have a lot more tools in terms of what we are able to do to customize not just the language on these different pages, but also be able to customize, I would say, two things: layout possibilities on the multi-language variant, as well as accessibility standards on multi-language sites. So being able to, for example, if a language is right to left instead of left to right, we have more control because HubSpot is moving more towards these coded templates to be able to adapt to those audiences and provide those extra meta information tools that not only benefit your user experience, but can also help with SEO efforts as well. So that's one way that we can do it. Also on the layout side, obviously, we can kind of customize because content can kind of change based on the language that it's in terms of the visual appearance. We can change how specific areas of the page are structured as long as we're hooking into the right variables. And just kind of in that way, we can really make sure that every user, no matter where they're coming from, no matter what device they're using, really is getting the right experience for them, and ultimately the marketer's language of their messages is getting across and hoping for it.
Yeah, I love that it's not just kind of a checkbox, right? It's like when you are translating your site, it's not just well, we have the page, we just need to pop it into another language and make another template or clone it or use the HubSpot tool and just get it live. Like, it gives you can go back to those optimizations and creating that user experience that's catered to that audience. One thing that I learned from one of our kind of translation partners that we work with is just simply translating words doesn't mean that you have a multi-language site. There are cultural nuances, there are not even just in accessibility, but just in the words you use and the way you present the words. And when HubSpot gives you the tools to do that, you are making a better connection with people, and you're making language not a barrier for your customers, which is huge, right? Like, you don't want language to be the only reason why people aren't connecting with you. And if you can kind of break those down and have your team enabled by all these tools, you're kind of achieving that mission, right?
I can give a couple quick hits on with the new product, how some of the things in the new product are enabling this that we haven't talked about already. On both tiers, we now allow for unlimited subdomains and unlimited top-level country domains. So you can have a .de, .mx, whichever country code you want to use. You can use unlimited ones. So we just want to make sure that it's really easy for you to set these up. Additionally, in both domains, Justin hinted on it, the adaptive. We have A/B testing on both for multi-language pages. That's new. We only had A/B testing for your main. Now you can do it for any of them. And then in the enterprise, as just we have adaptive testing, which is an AI machine learning run testing with up to 5 variations. The other things that we have in the works for both, that's a long requested feature, is multi-language blogs. That's something that's in early beta. We'll see that really soon. So you'll have a lot more flexibility in how you create your blogging content and blogging strategy around different languages. Then the two things that I want to highlight in enterprise are, first, we talked about earlier, as a scaling organization, you probably are starting to have different teams in different regions and different countries, and they don't need access to everything. So using the new partitioning tool, you could say, I want our German team to just see and access and have write access or read access to this particular set of content in this particular part of the site. So you can get very, very granular on a user basis or a team basis, and being able to manage, again, multiple regions at scale. Along with, we have the idea, we talked about subdomains, we talked about top level. If you have a totally different domain, now in CMS Hub Enterprise, you can add on multiple we call them brand domains. Previously, that was kind of reserved for just Marketing Hub Enterprise, but now in CMS Hub Enterprise, you can add on multiple domains. So as we were talking about, if you need to create a totally different experience, or you have a totally different brand or business unit that's operating in Japan versus the US, you can create a whole separate website on a separate domain. And the beauty is, out of the box, the CMS Hub Enterprise comes with 2 websites. Then you can always add on additional websites if you want. So right out of the box, you will create 2. And so that helps a lot of folks that, again, do need to tailor that experience and have a very separate brand or experience for a particular region.
That's a perfect segue, actually. The other types of questions, I had a call with a client yesterday who said, hey, yeah, I'm running marketing for this company, and she originally said, I want to implement HubSpot, and I want to implement the Marketing Hub, the CRM, and the CMS. And now we just got acquired by this other business, and we bought out our competitor, and so now I have these 3 sites and all of this content and all these properties, and I need to figure out what to do with all this, right? So we know companies like grow organically. Some companies grow through the acquisition of other companies. So, and those marketers have those brands, those domains to manage, potentially merge. We'd love to dig in and better understand, like you touched on it, Luke, maybe Justin, you could dig in a little bit further on, like how will HubSpot be able to support those marketers who are growing through acquisition?
Sorry, did you ask me for that, or is that Luke?
Yeah. Sorry, I mentioned Luke, but then I asked you, so it was confusing.
Justin, why don't you kick it off with any thoughts, and then I can throw some in.
Yeah, can you rephrase the question real quick? Apologies on that.
The idea of, like, for companies that are growing through acquisition, they are growing by acquiring other companies, and now they have brands, they have domains, they have to manage, maybe even think about later down the line merging. Like usually people are saying, yeah, but right now I just got to get into maintenance mode, but then like a year from now I'm going to start to, like, I might want to come under one. How does choosing HubSpot CMS as their solution, how is that going to help them as they're navigating that kind of a situation?
Yeah, Luke, I think you actually could probably speak to that a little bit better.
We have, like, one of the things that happens when you start inheriting all these different systems, we touched on it earlier, is you start to have one system that's configured in a very certain way, right, on a certain CMS, a certain CRM, you have certain API data being through, and then you have this whole other disjointed system over here. And again, one of the challenges that you see is even in that scenario, it's even more magnified, where you end up basically hiring people full time to just manage the system and sync data and move data and making sure that all things are talking to each other, and it becomes a complete IT nightmare. And one of the trends that we're seeing, especially now, we're seeing at HubSpot, is a big tech consolidation in these times where folks are much more conscious on where their money's going. And so not only is it the cost of all these systems, having separate software licenses and trying to maintain it, but it's also the cost of having an IT person who can manage this type of a system. And then they have to either learn this new system, or you have to hire a whole nother set of IT folks that have, or developers that have, the skills for that other system. So just the maintenance of it becomes very unwieldy. And so anytime that you're able to simplify and do less better and bring things together into a unified system, not only is it gonna be more cost effective instead of having all these separate licenses, it's also going to drastically decrease the learning curve for the team. And if you hire new team members, things like that, like, it'll just drastically lower the learning curve. And then 3, as we talked about earlier, it brings everything into one place. So now when you want to do things like multi-touch attribution, when you want to do things like A/B testing, when you want to do things like personalization, all of that information is at your fingertips, depending, you know, for both business units or both brands. You're not trying to like jump over to this system and export something into a CSV and then like Google it up or like mess it up a little bit in your local machine and upload the CSV somewhere else. It's just simplified. It's just so streamlined, and it makes that way more actionable. So from the product standpoint, the product feature that allows that is that brand domains, as we call it. The brand domains not only allows you to spin up your own multiple websites on different domains, but it also starts allowing you to segment and partition the actual content. Say, I want to run reporting or multi-touch attribution just in this segment for this brand, and I want to run it on just this brand. Then I want to look at how people interacted between these two business units and brands. And you can start to really organize things, whether it's your workflow automation, if you have the Marketing Hub, your pages and content, your, again, reporting and analytics. It puts it all into one system, and it's all running off of a unified CRM system. Now, the last thing I'll mention there is, even if you're listening to all this and you're like, Luke, we're already using like Oracle, or we're already using Salesforce, we have no interest in changing CRMs at this point. The beauty is our CRM not only has a lot of integrations out of the box and a lot of robust APIs, that a lot of folks use the CRM as their customer data platform, CDP, that allows them to, the sales team can use their tool here if there's no budging to systems, totally cool. Just bring it all into HubSpot, the data with our built-in Salesforce integration, and then it enables the marketing team and all the other folks to do their work too. So that's like a little, I guess, asterisk, is when you're dealing with these disjointed systems, making a change all at once can be difficult, but there's plenty of integrations that we have like Salesforce that allow you to kind of make that transition in phases. So it's not so disruptive to all the teams changing CRMs or changing, you know, tools.
Awesome.
Yeah, kind of in the same vein, I did have one other point on this one as well. Similar to what Luke was saying, I just wanted to bring up, especially as a comparison to other CMSs, because HubSpot is a SaaS product, and especially a CRM first SaaS product, that also means that their API infrastructure on the back end of these tools is a lot more robust than a lot of the competitors that you're going to see in the market. And so what that means is, if it does come to be a time when you need to merge HubSpot portals or something like that, the endpoints in terms of what's available for your content, in addition to your contact data, is all going to be remappable much more fluidly and much more, trying to think, I guess, consistently. So your data is going to come across from one portal to another, because all the data is structured in a more logical way and in a way that is going to be more compatible from system to system.
Compatibility is so critical too. I've worked with a variety of different clients in different industries, but I would say like this question comes up to me the most in the SaaS industry. Growth, acquisitions, mergers, it's everywhere, and it's happening all the time. And it can be such a challenge just to simply get visibility into how all these different brands are performing when they're in these segmented systems. It also makes it impossible for marketers to create these true like cross-selling, upselling, like a collaborative internal sales and marketing department when it's all disparate. And having those brand domains and having the ability to segment out data and content within one tool, it makes it so much easier on everyone involved, and it gives you, it just gives you everything in one place, right? You're not wasting time, you're not losing data, you're not losing customers because of it.
Awesome. I saw while Luke was going through kind of the example of the world that folks used to have to live in, Molly, I thought you were having some post-traumatic stress disorder. I was seeing some signs there.
Yeah, you definitely triggered some memories that I hoped to never have to live through again. The CSVs and oh man. Thank you for solving this problem, HubSpot. Thank you.
Well, Mark, you brought up other CMSs, and we have clients that are obviously using HubSpot CMS. We have clients using WordPress. as well, and we build on both. But a lot of people, I mean, WordPress powers over 30% of the world's websites. And there are teams that are looking, they're thinking, okay, should we think about moving, or as we're thinking about moving, right, from WordPress to HubSpot CMS to see if this is going to be a good fit for us? I want to know, like, what do you think their pro-con list should look like? Because there definitely are. I mean, there are trade-offs. Like, WordPress is a really powerful CMS. There are a lot of great things about it. So from like a developer perspective, what do you envision that pro-con? Like, what's the give and take there?
Sure, absolutely. So I think a lot of it comes down to a lot of the points that Luke brought up in his kind of opening statements, especially around kind of the term that gets thrown around, at least in my world, is like DevOps. So the cost that goes into having to maintain a completely custom tech stack for your business. So, you know, kind of I don't know, the way that I always think of HubSpot is it is really like the Goldilocks CMS. It is flexible enough that you can build out responsive sites. It's not like going to lock you into a layout like Wix or Squarespace. And you ultimately have control over making sure that everything is responsive and fluid and can be designed by a designer, and you aren't just kind of inheriting a template and hacking around on top of it. But at the same time, you aren't missing out on, or you aren't running into those inefficiencies that go along with installing plugins, installing security updates, running backups, just a lot of the kind of the overhead that, as he said, takes marketers away from doing their job, or just takes in general time or effort from being invested into making the website what it should be, an agile marketing engine. So in terms of a pro-con list, I would say from the kind of the marketer or business owner lens, it's going to be way more resilient than anything custom, unless you're investing a lot of money in people, making sure that your website is going to stay up. But HubSpot reliability is absolutely unmatched, in my opinion. We've had sites go down very, very seldomly, and usually it's fixed within like 5 or 10 minutes. So in that sense, security, reliability are absolutely on the pro list, especially now with a lot of the developer tools rolled out in the CMS Hub product. It also means developers can move a lot quickly. So we're using tools that, again, are more industry standard, things like version control, things like CLIs or build tools, which allow us to write less code and output more code. That is also more reliable and ultimately going to save time. Also, not even just on the developer side, but also in QA, because ultimately we can write the rules for how our code is going to be compiled. So agility is definitely a pro as well. The only real kind of cons on the list is that it is kind of the other comparison I make with HubSpot a lot of the time is like it is the Apple experience. So like you are doing things the way HubSpot wants you to be doing them, and that's a good thing because the performance also that you get out of HubSpot is unquestioned, and that is kind of the reasoning behind a lot of the workflow that you do go through. So in that sense, you are kind of like, there can be some customizability things that you might want on another CMS that up until recently haven't been possible, but also the other thing to remember is that with a lot of the new features, being able to have more control over your templates, have things, especially in enterprise, things like membership areas, and a couple things we'll talk about later in terms of making those app-like experiences possible. A lot of those customizable experiences are also now a part of HubSpot. So the con list is very short to make it all, to make it kind of sum everything up. It's my favorite CMS to work on by far. Again, I don't need to worry about reliability or like installing, even just on a normal server. I also dabble a little bit in like headless CMSs and a lot of things that are kind of like on the bleeding edge. You don't have to mess around like hacking through documentation or anything like that. The way that you build things on HubSpot is standard, it's reliable, and ultimately at the end of the day, it creates a great user experience and marketer experience. So we can make our sites as agile as possible.
Sweet. Luke, you've got to have like this massive like kind of pro-con list sort of sketched out sort of in your, like as you were part of this product development team and coming up with this strategy with the CMS, what do you envision people are putting on their pro-con list?
I think the assumption that comes up right away is that it's an assumption of like a fight, that it's like a us versus them type of mentality. And I actually don't believe that. We do believe that we have good partnerships with WP Engine, we have partnerships with Automatic. And so it's really more about fit versus fight. What is the right fit for a CMS for your company? And that's going to be different for everyone. So that's like the first like level setting for everyone, is like first determine what's a good fit for you. If you are a fast growing company who's tired of being held back by all those kind of clunky management, heavy maintenance, low security type of systems, and you want your marketers to be empowered to get work done, that's where CMS Hub can be a fit for your team. And so when we look at things, traditional CMSs, and this isn't just WordPress, this is, I mean, I used to live in the open source world when I was at the agency. We built on Joomla, we built on WordPress, Magento, Drupal, and you have this challenge with all of these systems is that, again, those traditional CMSs force you to focus on updating, focus on maintenance. And when you first start out, for those of you, maybe let me know in the chat pane if this sounds familiar, but when you first start out, it's like, this isn't too bad. But as you layer on more plugins, more functionality, and as the company grows, it kind of demands that out of the website. It needs to evolve and it needs to add more things in, but as it grows, it becomes more clunky, a lot harder to use. You make an update and it breaks something over here, and then it takes you a while to figure out how, or things maybe aren't getting updated. And so again, regardless if it's WordPress or if it's Drupal or Joomla, anything that requires that level of maintenance and updates pulls your time away from more impactful activities. So I think that's the first thing to think about. The other thing that comes up quite often is the fact that WordPress has so many plugins, which is absolutely true. It's phenomenal. Their ecosystem is great. They have, I think, like 54,000 plugins. But the challenge is there's some good ones and there's a lot of bad ones. And for many developers, building a plugin is kind of like a night and weekends activity. And so you got to be real careful when you choose developers for WordPress, when you choose plugins to use for WordPress, because if you're not getting something that is good quality, it's going to lead to a lot of headaches down the road. There's nothing free in life, my friends. And also that, making sure that they are making updates to the plugins on a regular basis. Because not only do you as an organization need to be making those updates to the plugins, but also the developer who's the core developer of that plugin also needs to be keeping up to date with them. If they don't push a new update, there's no update for you to make. And so you run into scenarios where you have someone's night and weekend project that doesn't get updated, and all of a sudden it creates a huge vulnerability for your website as a downstream effect. So again, I think it's more of a fit versus fight. If you find that WordPress is a better fit for your company, HubSpot's got you covered. We have a WordPress plugin that basically brings some of the power of our free tools and our CRM directly into the WordPress interface. If you say we're a fast growing company, we're sick of all this like maintenance stuff, we've kind of outgrown it, we need more, our IT team is screaming for better security and our marketers are breaking things anytime they try to make a change, then CMS Hub is a better fit for you. And so that's the way that we like to look at it.
Awesome. So I have one more question, but we've got a couple of very tactical questions I thought maybe we could answer for folks. Jordan is asking, what programming language does CMS Hub use?
Sure.
Mark, I'll let you tackle that one.
Sure, yeah. In terms of programming languages, so HubSpot does a lot of the code compiling actually on their end. So most of the time that we are writing code, it's a variant of what's called Jinja, which is a templating language based on Python. HubSpot has actually made their own version that now runs on Java. But at the end of the day, really us as developers, we're primarily working in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then using that templating language to kind of hook into those HubSpot services that are running on the server side. So ultimately, it creates a very smooth developer experience. Really, it's pretty quick to jump from any other kind of web platform into HubSpot because at the end of the day, most of the layout is being handled by HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Yeah, and if I speak on the Hubble really quick, we call it Hubble. That's our templating language. If any of you have ever explored Shopify, their Liquid framework, or Craft, Twig, or really any other templating language, it pretty much works the exact same. You basically just need to learn the syntax, which we have we just relaunched all our documentation. And so the documentation makes it super easy to learn and pick up the syntax and run with it. So I think that's the one thing I'll mention. Sometimes it's like a little scary, like, oh, I got to learn this whole new thing. Like, I mean, Mark can speak to it better than I can, but you know, it's pretty straightforward templating language, really to just save you time from having to code lines and lines of code. You can just shoot in a tag, and it takes care of a lot of it for you. And you just got to learn the syntax, which is fairly straightforward.
Awesome. And one more quick question.
The other thing I'll mention. Sorry, for that one specifically, with the new serverless functions that's in the CMS Hub Enterprise, that you're actually able to build full JS apps on. So if you want to use Angular, React, or anything, you're able to build that and host those more complex full JS applications in serverless functions.
Yeah, so yeah, they're node based, so that's going to be your syntax. It's still JavaScript.
Node based. Yep. Node.
Yep.
I'd like to pretend like I know what you guys are talking about, but I'm just a sales and marketing professional.
It's all nerdy. It's all nerdy speak, but it's pretty standard development stuff. So don't get scared, marketers. Your developers are going to know exactly what this all is. They're not going to be scared of this at all.
Mark,
I'm so glad we have you on our team, because this is way over.
Yeah. I want to get to Merrick's question, and I wanted to ask you all one last final question as we wrap this power hour up. Merrick was asking if HubSpot Professional integrates with e-commerce, actually e-commerce professional or e-commerce solutions. So I didn't know if Mark, Luke, Jessica, if you had a response to the e-commerce question. Like, I know we've built websites with Shopify as an example from that are integrated with HubSpot.
I will say, especially with the move to coded templates and kind of utilizing, it opens up, especially with serverless functions as well, it opens up a lot of possibilities for us to use APIs on the front end side. So previously we've been able to kind of run, I believe HubSpot has a native Shopify integration, so we can kind of run a lot of the reportings in the back end stuff between the two platforms pretty well. But in terms of displaying Shopify content or any other kind of e-commerce platform, sometimes it can be a little bit of a challenge. But as we move towards a reality in HubSpot where we can build more app-like experiences and we can do more asynchronous data, meaning data coming from different sources, not just being driven by Hubble on HubSpot's side. It does open up a lot of opportunities for us to look at kind of on the custom development side, integrating some of those platforms and bringing those products over onto a site that is primarily hosted on HubSpot. That's where I think it could be going. In terms of as the CMS exists now, Luke, you might be a little bit more apt to answer that question.
Yeah, so on the high level, if again, it depends on fit. What's a good fit for you? If you are a full-blown e-commerce shop, you got tons of products, HubSpot CMS is probably not the right fit to build that out in. But as Mark mentioned, we've been investing and partnering with Shopify, who's like the industry leader for anything e-commerce, and have a native Shopify integration built right out of the box. And so that's what a lot of folks will do if they need to build that. We also have a e-commerce bridge SDK. So if you're using something like Magento, Big Commerce, or one of the other ones, you can use that SDK to basically make the integrations very, very quickly and easily as well. So that's option one. Option two, if you have just a few products, or you have a membership subscription website, or you have a subscription site of some sort, that is possible on the CMS Hub. And so the way you can do that in a few ways. The first one is I've seen a number of modules that are built out with a Stripe integration or Square integration. And so basically just you can build it right into our forms tool, and it does all the payment processing and everything for you, and spits them to a thank you page once they fill that out. If you're looking for an example of what that looks like, we recently relaunched our CMS showcase site. It's called inspire.hubspot.com. And if you go to inspire.hubspot.com, there's a category there or a tag there. You can search for payment processing, and you can see some examples of people who have built some of those payment processing type things. The other route you could go, we have a, one thing we didn't really talk about, speaking of plugins, is we have a app integration marketplace. And so there's over 350 applications that have integrate directly with HubSpot. One of those integrations is Deposit Fix. And so Deposit Fix makes it very easy for you to connect Deposit Fix with no code, no developer needed. You just plug it in and you can integrate it into your forms to do payments on that. So that's the second way. The third way you can do payments, if you also have Sales Hub, I think right now it's just Sales Hub Enterprise. It's in beta. We have a buy now button, which is just basically our flavor of a really lightweight like Stripe integration. So it integrates with Stripe, and then you can set it all up. It's just a simple little buy now button that opens up a Stripe purchase flow. So that's, again, kind of hidden because it's in beta, but it's in Sales Hub Enterprise. If you have that in the CMS, you'd be able to set it all up. And then the last thing I'll mention on this, for folks that are trying to build those experiences, those types of experiences, some of the new features in CMS Hub Enterprise will make that easier. For example, we talked about serverless functions. That will give you more flexibility on how to build out some of those purchase flows and run some of the purchasing stuff. We also have now reverse proxy support. So if you're running like two separate systems on, let's say, Shopify and HubSpot, you can make sure that the brand domain, from the brand standpoint, the experience your customers get, they won't know any different because you're able to set it up with the reverse proxy support, so it all looks like it's coming from the same place. So that's the last thing I'll say on that.
Yeah, and one really cool thing to highlight with the Shopify integration is that I believe HubSpot has around like over 10,000 installs of that integration, just to show you the scale of customers that are using it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a serious thing. We got a whole product team that's what they do, is they build out those native integrations. So they're spending a lot of time and energy like making that thing better and better.
So this last question, I'm gonna punt this to email. So because we're 5 minutes over our time, I want to be respectful of everyone, all of you who have been hanging on with us and listening to every word. I'm going to be asking this panel what feature we have not discussed yet they're most excited about, and I will include that in the wrap-up email that will have this recording as well, along with any questions that were asked that we didn't get around to on the panel today. So I hope you enjoyed this idea, this concept of like, let's get some smart people together to have experience like their take on a new feature. Next month in May 13th, same time slot, so 11 Pacific, 2 o'clock Eastern, we are going to be covering the enhancements to one of our all-time favorite marketing channels. Good old email marketing is such a cornerstone of so many marketers' toolkits. So again, we'll be recording. We'll have it morning along. So their favorite CMS hub. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on May 13th.
Hey everyone.